What's up, guys? So, today we're going to talk about why you should not buy a house until you watch this video. Guys, welcome to Brick by Brick Podcast, Real Estate Podcast. My name is George McPherson. I'm a real estate investor, I'm a developer, a coach, and recently an agent. All right, so let's dive into why you should watch this video first before you buy a house. All right, so we're going to talk about house hacking. There's a lot of people that want to get into real estate investing, and they're saying, well, they can't get into it because of the simple fact that it's cost too much money, or they might not have the right experience to get into it, right? The credit, all this other stuff. But I'm going to explain a way to you where you could actually get into real estate investing pretty early. And if you have kids, this is very strategic why I'm doing this, because since the last, I want to say, month, there's a lot of people that's been graduating. Now we have high school graduation, so there's kids going off to college, and I know there's parents watching this and they have kids going off to college. So instead of putting them into dorm room, you might want to watch this as well. All right, guys. So what we're going to be talking about is going to be house hacking, right? And with house hacking, it's a strategy that you could use to build wealth when it come on to real estate and real estate investing, right? It's a simple tool that we could use, right, and reuse every single year to build up a rental portfolio while we move on to the next one until we buy that dream home. I always say never go ahead and buy your dream home first unless you can really afford it. You got that dream job, you're making a lot of money, whatever. But if you want to get into real estate investing and you say that, well, you know what, I don't have enough money, then this is a way that you could do it, right? So if you're looking to buy your first home, but you want to get in real estate investing at the same time, there's a thing called house hacking that you could do. And there's a lot of people that are doing it, and you can do it too. And what that is basically you're buying a house and you're renting it out to other people. Now, you're still living in that house, but say, for instance, you could have different ways of doing it. House hacking is you sharing a space or a multifamily, but you're renting units out or you're renting rooms out. So say, for instance, you have a house, right? You're looking to buy a house. And with this house, you're only putting down, let's say you're going with a FHA loan. That FHA loan, you're going to put down 3.5%. That's way better than you putting down 20% on an investment property, right? So by using a FHA, you put down 3.5%, you can now house hack, which that means is if you buy a single family house, then you could rent rooms out and then you collect rent from those people. Now, I'm going to go into different things that you could do to protect yourself from bringing in people, but you really want to screen these people, no matter if you're bringing them into your home or you're renting them units out. As far as if you have multifamily, the main thing you want to do is you want to get somebody that's going to be screened, and you screen them properly when you're taking them into your place, right? If you know them, it's even better. So the reason why I brought up college is because with this is a perfect strategy to use when your kids is going off to school. Instead of sending them to a dorm room, and I know dorm rooms can be very expensive, instead of sending them to a dorm room, you could actually buy a condo. You could actually buy a townhouse, or you could buy an inexpensive house that's close. And you don't even have to buy an inexpensive house. You could just buy a house that you can afford that's close to the college or close to the area that to the school that he or she's gonna be at, and then have them have roommates just like they would have in dorm rooms, right? But now what you're doing is, in a sense, you're building wealth, which in a sense you could take that house after the 4 year that your child graduated from college, right? That could be a gift to them, or it could be a start for them where now they have a house that they could live in and start building their family. Or you could just say, you know what, let me sell that house and give them the proceeds and let them go on and start doing certain things with their life. Or you could keep that property and still rent it out and just collect cash flow off of it, and then let them manage the property going forward. But when you do that, you're managing the property up front. Now, you could let your child manage the property and give them that sense of ownership and give them that sense of starting a business and them running a business, letting them know how to collect certain things. If you want to do that, I would recommend them not doing that. Let them just focus on school, right? But that's a strategy that you could definitely use, house hacking. Now, say for instance, you don't have a child going off to school, but you're looking to purchase a home right now, right? But you want to get into real estate investing as well. And even if you're not trying to get into real estate investing, it's just a form that you could use, a strategy that you could use to lower your costs as far as when you're living, it lower your living costs, but you also have the opportunity to now get cash flow, right? So again, a strategy is you could rent out rooms. Another strategy is you could buy multifamily. Now, when you buy multifamily with a 2-unit, you're not going to be necessarily living rent free. It's a strategy that some people use to live rent free. You could do it in a single family house, depending on how much money you're collecting and how much your mortgage is. In a duplex situation, it's going to be very tight for you to be living rent free. But the whole purpose of this is you can now qualify for something that's much bigger or much more money. You could now qualify for it by using that rental income that you're going to collect from that second unit as something towards your mortgage. So now you could qualify for a multifamily. So say, for instance, you buy a duplex, you're going to rent that other side out, live in the other unit, and you now have what's called an investment property. So now you could move forward and say, all right, I'm a landlord. You're learning how to do that stuff. Then you screen your tenants properly and you're collecting money. So now, in a sense where, say, for instance, your mortgage is going to be $1,600, but you could rent the other side for $1,200. Well, you're only paying $400 for mortgage. So now all you have to do at that point, that $1,200 that you're saving, right, you should be putting towards your savings, right? So now you could build up. So the following year, right, imagine if you save that up, the following year, you can now turn around and now go ahead and do the same thing over and over again, right? So all you have to do is just learn the strategy, house hacking strategy. So if you get, and a multifamily is anything up to a 4-unit, right? Once you go over 5 units, then you're going into something else, right? They're going to consider that more of a commercial space. So when you're doing this, you want to look for 4 units or less, right? And then you just do the house hacking when you're talking about using FHA loan, which is going to be probably the lower amount that you could put. You can do conventional financing, and some conventional financing actually have where you could put 3% down. Okay. There's new stuff coming out as we speak. You probably watching this a few months after or whatnot. There's always different programs coming out, different ways that you could purchase properties. I always say, even with VA, if you're in the military and you don't own a house, I mean, come on. I mean, you could purchase a house without putting no money down, right? I have friends in the military. I talk to them all the time. I said, listen, man, you've been in the military so long. Why not own at least 2 or 3 homes if you're coming out the military? With a military, one reason why I say that too, if you guys don't know, when you're in the military, you can get what is called a VA loan. And with a VA loan, you don't put no money down. You could get a mortgage with 0 money out of pocket, right? And then you don't pay any PMI. Now, there's advantages as well. Once you get out of the military, you have something like disability, then you have nothing where you don't pay property taxes, which is to me that's even a plus on top of that, right? So there's certain things that you could do. Now with the VA loan, same thing as anything else. When you first go in, right, to the military, or even if you're in the military right now and you don't own a house, you could do this strategy, because if you live on a military base, guess what? There's a lot of times there's other people that are looking for places to live as well. So you could rent it out. You could purchase a property. If you purchase a 4-bedroom house, you could actually purchase it, live in one part, which is a master bedroom. If you want to live in a different one, you can, right? A different room, you can, and then rent the other 3 rooms out. And that way you rent the other 3 rooms out to other people that are on the military base. You could do that if you want, right? That's just one strategy if you're in a VA, right? Same thing with FHA. You could do the same thing. But it helps you to get into real estate investing, right? A lot easier as far as down payment wise. Now, with all these, you have criteria, you have certain things that you have to do before you could move out. You can't just purchase the property with 3.5% and say, all right, peace out, I'm going to go buy a next one. No, it doesn't work like that. What you have to do first is you have to live in that property for a certain amount of time. Once you live in that property, then you could say, all right, let me go ahead. I'll move out of this one. I'll use my FHA again, which is a 3.5%. You could use that again to purchase another house. Now, what they're going to look at is if you have that property in your name still and you're trying to purchase another property with a FHA, you're going to have to show rental income that property is stable enough that it can go on its own without you have to use your income. That's the easiest way. Now, if you have the income, the credit and everything to be able to purchase a second one without you showing income, that's great as well. But the thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that to be easy for you to qualify a lot easier, you want to make sure that you go ahead, have and show rental, so you could show rent roll, right? And then they will use that. And if you're cash flowing on that, now you're getting income. So now they're showing that towards your income. So now your debt to ratio actually go down more because now they're using the rent that you're collecting as income, right? So same thing that you could do. This is a strategy that I always recommend. Now, you could buy a house that has a basement. You might say, listen, I'm not comfortable sharing rooms. I'm a woman or whoever it is, I'm a guy. There's some people, they just don't like to be in personal space, and it's okay. You could get a house with a basement, and with that basement, you could rent the basement out, right? And then you collect your money that way. Now, for some people, it just depends on the type of lifestyle you live. You might, for if you're a single person, right, you have to look at the property and see what makes sense for you. You could buy a house with a basement, and you know that on the top floor, you're going to be able to collect more money than the basement. So if you're single and you don't mind living in a basement, you could live in a basement, rent the top out, and collect more money that way. Or you could rent the basement out and collect money as well. It all depends on what you are most comfortable with, but there's different strategies. You don't stick yourself or put yourself into one box, meaning that, you know what, hey, George, we don't have basements in where we live. Say, for instance, you live in Florida. We don't have basements. All right, cool. Get a multifamily, right? If you can't find a multifamily, then at that point, you do house hacking by purchasing a house. Now, I'm not saying you could go get strangers, but what if you have family members? What if you have other people that you know that's looking for places to rent or rooms to rent, right? Now, another way that you could do it, which I wouldn't call this house hacking, I call it more of a hustle, and that's Airbnb. You could use yours as short-term rentals, right? By having short-term rental, you don't actually have to deal with the lease situation, right? You don't have to deal with somebody always being in your house. And if they stop paying you, now you have to deal with the headache of trying to get them out or get them evicted. Versus if you have an Airbnb, right, then at that point, you know that, hey, you know what? I just need to rent this out for 10 nights. And if you're renting out $100 a night, right? That means that you get your $1,000 versus renting it out to someone every month and have to deal with them every single day. And you're getting that $1,000. So there's different things that you could do and strategize. You have to sit down and say, listen, what best works for me in the situation I'm in? What best works for us right now, as far as if you have your child going off to college and you say, listen, you know what? The dorm rooms is nasty, and dorm rooms can be really nasty and disgusting. I went, when I was going off to college, I walked the dorm rooms and I said, absolutely not. I am not living in there. I am not living in there. So I went, and where did I go? I went to a college, same thing. I went to a college dorm, college type setup where I rent a room, which is just the room and a bed and a bathroom in there, but I share the kitchen and living area. And it's the same thing that you can do if you're sending off your kid to school. Instead of putting them in one of those areas, the thing is, my parents didn't know any better, right? But my thing is, when my kids are ready to go off to college, if they decide to go off to college, you better believe that that's something that's going to come up, right? Because again, you can either put money towards, think about if you're paying for 4 years versus if you buy a house and have your kid living there for 4 years while they have the same thing going on. So instead of you going ahead and put your child or your kid in a college living sharing space, right, where they're renting a room, sharing living room, why not just buy the house? Why not just buy the house? If it's a 3-bedroom, have them stay in the master bedroom, which is more comfortable. Have them have roommates, and then you're collecting money that way, right? And now at the end of 4 years, you could hand that house off to your child. You could sell that house because your house is building up equity. You have different things that you could do, but now you didn't throw away money for the last 4 years while they're going to school. So that's different as far as strategies that you could use. You could rent a multifamily, rent the space out. You could rent you could do a single family, rent the rooms out. You could also do a basement and rent the basement out, right? Rent the basement out, live in the top, or live in the top, or rent the top out and live in the basement. But there's different strategies that you guys can use. And for some people, they're saying, well, I can't get into real estate investing, right? Because the 20% down. And that is a way for you to get into real estate investing. Everybody's saying, well, you buying a house is a liability. It all depends on what you look at it as. Let me tell you something. Right now, if you look at America itself, how do people end up building wealth? Over the years, is through a lot of people build their wealth through real estate. And when you look at it, when somebody dies or their grandparent die or their parent die and they left a house to them, guess what they're leaving? They're leaving a house with equity in it, right? So now they can go off and start a business. Now they can go off and have a better life than their parents. So when you're thinking about, hey, you know what? I don't want to buy a house because it's a liability. It's all your mindset of how you look at when you purchase a house. When you look at purchasing a house, you should have a strategy behind it. I don't care if it's your personal property or it's a rental property, but you always have a strategy behind it. And what's your exit strategy? If you're just buying a home to buy it and say, oh my God, this is my dream home, but at some point you might get tired of that house. At some point, you might get a different opportunity where you have to relocate. At some point, you could lose a job, and then now you're stuck with a house that you can't afford. And then you're saying you want to hold on to it because you have emotions tied to it instead of selling the property. I'm seeing people right now that are losing homes, right, for no reason. Meaning that they have equity built up in a house. They live in a house. They don't have no mortgage on it, but they didn't pay their taxes. And because they don't pay their taxes, guess what? You go off to a tax deed sale. You lose your house because somebody spent, $10,000 on a tax lien, and your house is worth $150,000. Guess what? You can't go to them and say, listen, you bought my house for $10,000, but my house is worth $150, so I need $140 from you. It doesn't work like that. When you buy a tax lien, you lose your house. If somebody buy a tax lien, your tax lien for your house, you lose your house. So you have to be careful. That's why when I say when you buy a house, have a strategy towards it. Because if you can't afford that house, at some point you need to let it go and find something that you can afford. Now, when you're talking about house hacking, you want to use the same thing. Purchase a house that if anything goes wrong and these people that are living in your property can't pay you rent or stop paying you rent, right? You still can afford that house. So not because you're saying, well, you know what, I can afford $1,400 and the mortgage is gonna be $2,000, but I'm gonna be collecting, $1,200 in rent. So really and truly, I'm good. I'm good. No, you're not, because if they stop paying that, you still have to cover your mortgage. So you still have to make sure that you're comfortable with having that. If they stop paying, it's going to take you time to evict those people. So you're talking about the process as far as you have to send it into the courts. You have to get a court date. You have to go to court. Then you have to get a writ of possession. That can take up to 2 months. Some places even longer. right? So for that 2 months, can you hold down your property in that 2 months if you're doing house hacking? And those are the things that you have to look into before you do this. Don't just jump into something just to do it because it sounds good, right? But you have to take in place what's your financial situation. Nobody knows your financial situation better than you do. So you want to make sure that you sit down with a pen and paper, write down, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And that worst case scenario, don't give it any leeway. I would say, if anything, make your worst case scenario. If you know that your worst case scenario is 1,400, put it to where it's like 1,200. So you give yourself, if that 1,200 hit, then you know what? You still have $200 room. But if that hit 1,200, you're starting to sweat. You give yourself room. Always give yourself room when you come to investing. I don't care what you're doing, right? Always give yourself room. But at the end of the day, I always say nobody knows your financial situation better than you do. So before you go out and do house hacking, which I think is great, which I think everyone that's purchasing their first property, especially if you're single, especially if you have a child going off to college, I think that's the perfect strategy to use to at least get them into real estate investing, or get yourself into real estate investing, is house hacking, right? Now, guys, my personal story towards house hacking, right? I did house hacking when we was building our home, right? So when we was doing building our home in Florida, we did house hacking, right? And every month that we did house hacking, that money that came in, we put that money towards our savings. So when we moved into the house, we had a strategy. Everything was bought with cash. We didn't own anything on no furnitures. When people purchasing houses, you'll see this all the time. People are purchasing furnitures on credit cards, all this other stuff when they're first moving into the home. But at the end of the day, you can be strategic, right? When you're moving into a property, you can be strategic. So that means that you write out your finances. Okay, what can you afford? Then you look at the situation as far as, hey, if I purchase this property, who can I rent it to? What area is it in? My son is going off to college, so let me look within a 5 to 10 mile radius of the college to see what can I purchase within that range, within that area that I can afford. So now, instead of our son being in a dorm room, right, or being on a college shared space, you can actually have a property that you're building equity in. You're paying off the principal. You could use towards a tax write-off, and you could use it as far as depreciation. There's so much more benefits that you could get when you purchase a property for your child going off to college, right? So guys, if you're interested in learning more about real estate investing, please just reach out to me, DM me. Also, if you're looking to buy or sell a property, reach out to me. I'm in the Atlanta area, Georgia area, so definitely reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. Till next time, guys, I'll see you.